What situation would you rather be right now? The Detroit Lions or the Jacksonville Jaguars? And I know for Lions fans, it's like, what? What are you talking about? And I'll tell you why. And this was first proposed, at least on Twitter, by Colton Pouncey, and he does great work for The Athletic, and he put out just a thread of this. Who would you rather be, the Detroit Lions or the Jacksonville Jaguars? You can go check that out. And again, Colton Pouncey on Twitter. But I thought, why not? Let's have this discussion. Because I think it's close. And this is two teams that had similar records last year. The Lions obviously beat down the Jacksonville Jaguars, but you can't look at it from one game and say, well, I'll just take the Lions. There's a lot of layers to this, Sam, right? You look at the Lions as a complete roster with all the young talent they have and what they found through Brad Holmes. There's a lot of guys you like, right? A lot of young players, defensively, offensively. But then you look at the Jags, and at least from a quarterback perspective, they have the better, at least up-and-coming quarterback. We don't know how good Trevor Lawrence can be. He's still very young, but the future's bright. There's no doubt about that. And then Doug Peterson, he won our Super Bowl. So say what you want. The Jacksonville Jaguars aren't some slouch, but I posed the question, and I'll ask you first, Sam Flannel. Who would you rather be right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Detroit Lions? Really, the biggest points of this whole conversation is the conference the Jags are in, because if you told me the Jags, and let's just say hypothetically the Jags were in the NFC, I would probably go with the Jags because, again, finding a franchise quarterback is one of the hardest things you can do, and for a guy like Trevor, who's going to be around for this organization for another 15 years, that's tough. But he's in the AFC, to your point.
Yeah.
And let's go through the quarterbacks you're going to be facing in the playoffs. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, Herbert, all under 28 years old.
That's another great point.
They're going to be around for a while. So that's really the big thing for me. The Lions, you could bring up the roster and people would say, well, why would you give Trevor Lawrence that nod already over Jared Goff? Well, Jared Goff is 28 years old, and he had a great season last year, and he's going to turn 29 next season. Trevor Lawrence is young, and he already, the year he had last year, at least the second half, he was one of the hottest quarterbacks behind Jared Goff. So let's not act like Trevor Lawrence is some slouch either. He's on a great trajectory as well. He finally has a competent head coach in Doug Peterson, so he'll be all right. But that conference is tough. You're talking about 5 guys that you're going to have to consistently battle to even make an AFC championship game. Now, the Lions, the big, I guess the David versus Goliath, you're facing the 49ers and the Eagles, which, talk about quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, he's great, but he had one good year, and then the 49ers don't really know who their quarterback is, but you know how great their team is. So if you give me, Jeff, what situation would you rather have because of the conference, because of the quarterbacks who the Jags are facing? You'd have to lean Lions because as a roster, I'll take the Lions roster as a whole over the Jags, right? The offensive line, the defensive line, and where they're projected to go, the secondary as well. I love Tyson Campbell, but a complete secondary, the Lions are trending towards that right now. And they keep having great draft classes. Let's go even above the team. I would rather have Brad Holmes over Trent Baalke. I would rather have Sheila Ford Hamp over ownership of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Khan or whatever.
Nut job. So we're going deeper into this, right? Ownership, front office, players. Now the only thing I would be hesitant in is quarterback. But if that's the only thing, you have to bring up the conference he's in. Again, if Trevor Lawrence was in the NFC, you'd be like, man, he might be the best quarterback in this conference, or he probably would be. But he's in the AFC, and that does change things. So I guess if you're asking me what situation I'd rather be if I'm trying to win a Super Bowl, to get there, the path would have to be the NFC. So I'd have to go with the Detroit Lions for that roster because you don't even need a Trevor Lawrence in the NFC to make the Super Bowl.